Hello and welcome to this new occasional feature, ChinnySound, where I interview someone in audio only about what they do in the 8 and 16-bit scene. And I thought I'd start off with someone who I'm not aware has spoken to any kind of podcast or YouTube channel before. They produce peripherals for 8-bit computers, most famously the SD2 IEC, and also the brand new Kung Fu Flash. They also publish games for the 8-bit computers. So let's welcome the star of EMU's all-live Pink Windmill show. It's Rod Hull from The Future Was 8-bit.
Yep, that's me.
And
no need to get confused with the other Rod Hull, the legendary one.
Just tell us a little bit about what The Future Was 8-bit does.
These days, I basically make and sell stuff for, general 8-bit computers, obviously Commodore mainly and Sinclair. But yeah, that's what I do. I like to think I punch above my weight, on the products. Yeah, it's a hobby gone mad, basically.
And you started off producing, I think it was the SD2 IEC for the C64, first of all, the SD card interface.
That's right, yeah. I just wanted some. I knew they existed. You couldn't buy them. Long time ago, I wanted to make the C64P laptop, so I needed some SD2 IECs. So eventually, I got some boards made, and the rest, as they say, is history. And that's
a massive seller for you. It's a big thing.
That's the crazy. Yeah, that's the crazy one. Because to be quite honest, I was shocked when I sold the leftover 5 PCBs back in the day, and you wouldn't even believe how many SD2 IECs must be out there in the wild now. But there's probably more SD2 IECs than Commodores now.
And you've spread on from that to the dreaded Sinclair.
Yeah. It had to happen. We're all fanboys of different things, but as much as I love my Commodores, we're always jealous of my mate's Sinclair. So obviously, when you get older and you start rebuying all this kit or digging it out, you want it to work. You want it to work well.
And that's what we capture all up. Well, we load most of the games on ChinnyVision on a Div MMC Future.
Yeah, I think I can distinctly remember bumping into you a long time ago. Back in the day, there just wasn't a good Div type of interface. They were all terrible, and I had a drawer of broken ones. So I took it on myself to just make a better one that worked with no jumpers, no messing around. And I was quite pleased with that. It was painful, but we did it,
I mean, I had one of the other, we won't mention the name here, with jumpers, and nothing ever worked. And you
they were junk, weren't they? In fairness,
it's in the drawer still. But you sent me your prototype across, which was just kind of all Captain Tape and stuff, and it already in with wires everywhere. Not a mess, but a prototype looks like a prototype, right? And it already loaded more than the other one did, which already put you ahead when it was in that state.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and it just niggled me that every time I wanted to use my Spectrum, I'd pull out the Div IDE or the Div MMC, and they were both constantly falling over and needing reprogramming, and awful. And it was literally desperation. And then I went mad with it because the Div MMC Future, as it's called, it was total overkill. As a 4-layer PCB, I designed the case before the PCB, so we had 44 millimeters to play with, I think. So it was a case of tough. This has got to fit in this chassis because it needs to look as good as an original Speccy, and I think it does. I was shocked how well it turned out in the end, but it was hard going. It wasn't easy, but we did it.
So you've got all these other projects, including the games. We'll come on to those in a minute. But what was your first home computer?
VIC-20, of course, like all the other cool kids. Yeah.
And so what were you playing on that?
Had one, didn't he? For
he
about
also had
the
a
first
QL.
year. Oh yeah, but everybody picked up a QL. I picked that up like secondhand later on. But yeah, on the VIC, I think for the first year I only had the free tapes, so it was basically Race and Hop It. Yeah, and Blitz. Oh yeah, very difficult Blitz on Type of Tune. So that was the 4 games you had with the VIC. But yeah, and I went through. I think I had 5 VICs in 2 years because the power supplies kept blowing up and killing the VICs. But yeah, I'm really glad I started off with a VIC. I wanted a Sinclair. I got a VIC. I was gutted, of course. Black and white TV, all of that. And I've still got one of my original Vics now, which is a daily drive. And there's just something about the Vic, 64 obviously eventually happened, but with me it was a 128. But yeah, I still go back to the Vic. I don't know what it is. It does it for me. I'm sorry.
Before you got your 128, you did have an interesting diversion for a few days, I believe.
Yeah. The PCW 8256 debacle. The man back in the day, children won't know this these days, but if you wanted a computer, you had to go somewhere avant-garde, like the local chemist. And the man in the chemist it would sell my dad anything, but he convinced him to take an 8256 in the end, because, you can program on an 8256 and play games, apparently. And of course, it was a very competent word processor, and that was it.
Not a gaming machine.
Not a gaming machine, but I tell you what, it introduced me there and then to how Amstrad knew what they were doing. They knew it. Everybody wanted a word processor. Everybody had those sodding things. And they were really good. I used to use them at college. I mean, I hated using them, but for the job they did, they were actually really good. And the printers were good.
It was only a couple of years ago that the Raspberry Pi overtook, in terms of sales, the PCW. I think it's 7 million
really
sold, yeah.
Because every college had a whole room full of them. Every newspaper used them because it was an instant, save to double disk if you wanted to, printer. It was a dumb printer. It was just like a blob chip in those things. But yeah, as an actual man finding a hole in a marketplace and making a lot of money out of it, hats off to the guy, because, I mean, those things were everywhere, and that predates the PC 512.
Yeah, I mean, the 1512, it predates it by well over a year. They did the CPC, they got the PCW out about the same time as the 6128, and then the 1512 was, I think it was 87, might have been late 86, can't remember, but yeah, they kind of knocking these machines out, one after the other, all the same design team, all the same people doing it. I mean,
again, it's like, I do like to enjoy the general, playground jabbing. I totally can't not do that, Every time anybody makes a noise about an Amstrad, I have to do the size of it joke, and then they can come back and say how brown the 64 is, and then we can all have a go at colour clash on the Spectrum. It's great fun, but Amstrads, one of my neighbours had a 464, just the normal Boggo one, green screen though, unfortunately. But again, it was a hell of a setup for the day. You couldn't deny that you had a machine that just worked, and you didn't have to steal somebody's television. But they did work. But I do enjoy the size of the CPC joke. That is hilarious.
One thing I worked out the other day was a CPC 464 colour monitor was about the same price as an MSX. When people ask me why the MSX failed in the market, it's like, well, for $299 you get this, or for $299 you get that, and that has a colour monitor for the same price.
See, if you're the right age, you can actually remember all this stuff happening. And I distinctly remember, it's like back in the day, the Vic was out, but I think we're all too young to really know what that was. And we all saw the Spectrum. We all wanted the Spectrum because the 64 was too expensive. It was a lot of money, and the games actually were quite poor back in the day. Early doors, the 64 games were poor. So we all wanted the Spectrum, but eventually, people got machines at different times and different bundles were coming out. So you kind of felt bad for people that got an Amstrad, because you would probably already have a Spectrum and you can't share the games, or a 64 and can't share the game. And that was the biggest thing. So you had your buddies at school. I had a buddy at school that had a VIC 20, brilliant, you know what I mean? And eventually when I had the 128, that opened up more of the playground, But yeah, the Amstrad came a little bit late in the day, but the adoption of it was actually quite fast. Because I think a lot of the kids that had dads in the services, they all came back with Schneider machines that cost them like 10p. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a 6128 here it's not it's a German one, but it's come back from Germany, and I think the documentation with it proves that the person was teaching in a German school, which means forces school, I would imagine. But also, Amstrad had their dealer network. So what you ended up in our town...
Oh, that's true.
We had an Amstrad dealer
Yeah.
So we had loads of Amstrad users at school because there was no Dixons, and Currys and Tandy sold their own thing. People thought, right, people with perhaps a little bit more money thought, right, I'm going to go to a computer shop, an expert, not Boots, not WH Smiths, and buy this thing from a shop who are going to support it.
It still must have been about 90% that bought them from John Menzies or places like that, though. Surely. Because I think
Dixons.
my nan always went to Debenhams or what was the place of it? QVC? No. Q and something, wasn't it? There was a predate, it went bust years ago. Can't remember the name of the place now. Just remember the logo in Bournemouth. But one of these department stores, because you picked up Commodores and Spectrums in department stores.
Oh yeah, they were sold because they were lower cost as well. They were sold everywhere.
And whereas, I think Dixons and that were actually a little bit later to the market, where they actually had a proper computer section. You know what I mean?
Amstrad put a lot out through in the book. In the Amstrad book, he's concentrating on the box shifters. He didn't want to do Sugar didn't want to do dealers or anything like that. He was persuaded to do them. It was all Dixons and Comet. Comet, I think, being a bit bigger at the time, but in the Amstrad ROM, you can actually find that Seisho. You can select with a jumper on a CPC board different brands because Amstrad weren't sure if they were going to sell direct. So you can go things like Triumph, Iwa, Seisho, which is Dixons. So they must have been thinking at one stage, we might only sell this computer in the UK through Dixons as their own brand computer. Yeah, but by the time you had the three players, the proper players, you had the 64, and it was getting old, and the Spectrum, and the Amstrad, that was when Dixons, you'd go there and you'd find all of them there. Oh, yeah. All of them. And when the next one came out, like the Amiga or the Plus 4, I remember they went mad for the Plus 4, but that was because they got them for like 1p each, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was a disaster, wasn't it? But yeah, back in the day when you could go into a shop and type rude things on keyboards was great fun, wasn't it?
Formatting hard disks when they didn't.
Oh,
yeah,
when they existed. Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Happy days, eh? Happy days. But yeah, I started off with a Vic and 8256 for a short period of time. I did actually like the machine, but it was useless to me. It was great to have because it was a good bit of equipment, but it was useless to me. And then I got the 128, which is Commodore, another one of Commodore's why did they make it type machines, because it was totally unutilized, but it was a fun machine to have. I made a lot of hardware for it. I sold that one to buy my hearse. There's the story. Yes, I did actually sell my 128 with its double monitors, etc., to buy a car. And I had the chance of buying it back, and I didn't. And I've always regretted that. But yeah, there we are. But yeah, you name it, I've owned it.
And then on to things like Amigas and PCs and so on from there, I guess.
Yeah, but it gets dull from there, doesn't it? To be quite honest, I mean, I got an Amiga 500 that was smashed up, and I repaired it. The main board was in 3 pieces. It was a disaster, but I got it working, and it worked quite well. And then eventually I bought an Amiga 4000 brand new, which I've still got, and it's still right next to me right now, and it's still my daily drive. And but yeah, the fun went out of it. GUIs don't make a computer, do they? A cursor makes a computer.
It depends on the GUI. Something like the Archimedes. The Amiga's
we like
pretty
them.
good.
They're good.
Not the ST.
Yeah, I know.
Gem, not Gem.
Don't even go there. Don't even remember what they called the actual underlying operating system. It's true. But yeah, no. But I did like my Amiga. I did a lot of comms on it. I did my first bulletin board on it. Actually, I think I ran 3 different variants on that. I fire up my Amiga now, and I do the same old things. I play Formula 1 Grand Prix, couple of games, and just poke around a little bit. But I'm much happier spending time on the VIC-20.
As ever, you've got lots and lots of products in development, and the very latest one is the Kung Fu Flash. Tell us a bit about it.
Reasonably recent design. I think it's been floating around for about a year now. Kim Gorgensen designed it and does the firmware for it. Effectively, it's kind of like a poor man's Ultimate cartridge, because it just does stuff from the menu, nice and simple, no extra wires and all that. Or it's like a very simple to use Easy Flash, because you can literally just pump it full of ROMs and select them from a menu. Off you go. No, like, you don't have to install the ROM like you would on an Easy Flash that might take you half an hour monkeying around. You can copy just 100 to the SD card, select the one you want. Hey,
so
presto.
You copy a certain type of file, I'm assuming it's CD, CRT files. You copy those to the SD card, you put it in C64, you turn the C64 on, you get a menu,
into the menu.
Bang.
Yeah. I mean, literally, it's the sort of thing. There's a help menu on it, but you're not going to need it because it is just up, down, left, right. But it will open PRG files, disk images as well. Special note that it currently doesn't do disk swap and NTSC. Special note for that. Yeah, it's surprisingly, it's a nice little thing, and I've been keeping an eye on it and thinking that's rather special. And then I was like, I'm just going to have to make them. I'm just going to have to make some, because at the end of the day, I like making things well. And if people don't want them, they don't have to buy them. But I think I've done quite well on that one. It's a nice PCB. We've got a nice little design on it. We've gone a little bit mad with the pink windmill theme for a change. Don't normally do the rod hole thing, to be honest. But yes, we've done a pastiche of the Kevin Eldon rod hull, of course. The real rod hole, as he's known. But yeah, it's a nice. I tell you, it's nice to find something new out there as a design that's open source that you can do something with, and you can improve upon it and give it a warranty. Yeah, it's being supported. There's fresh firmware getting written all the time, and as it stands, as a simple cartridge, if you're only using it for you to save monkeying around with your Easy Flash, it's superb. But if you want to use it for Easy Flash and open PRGs, you can, and it works with the 128. So it's a nice little thing. But yeah,
and I guess the unique selling point here is if you've got an SD2 IEC, you might be going, well, I'm not sure, do I need that? But I guess I haven't used the one you kindly sent yet. I guess the difference here is A, loading time is going to be quicker, and B, you can play cartridge games like RoboCop 2, like
just
Navy SEALs, without having to play hacked versions that don't necessarily work properly.
With funny swap discs things. It literally, you just go to wherever you'd normally get your Easy Flash downloads and suck them down. I did chuck a few on the SD card, but I don't tend to do that because of copyright issues. But everything I've thrown at it so far works. I'm really honestly, it's sometimes, like when back in the day with the Div MMC, I was horribly disappointed with the Div IDE. It was just a crog. It was unreliable as hell. Big rickety PCB. It would damage its own EEPROM all of the time, blow out a transistor because it was being overvolted to hell. And it just annoyed me so much. A couple of years later, I did my own. Now, the Kung Fu Flash was already a perfectly good little thing, except for what I've done. What I always do is we redesign stuff so when it's out there, it's not going to break. It's not going to break. We will end up giving it a lifetime warranty. I can't see why we won't, because it's just not going to break. You know what I mean? It's virtually unbrickable. I can't see how anybody can brick it. And we've put added protection on the circuit, so even if your C64 goes poof, the cartridge should survive. And so
thanks to you, one lucky person on Patreon will be winning one of those.
Oh, cool.
So stay on the Patreon to find out more details about that. We can't do draws anymore. We've got to do got to do competitions. I've got to choose the winner, basically. It's the only way Patreon lets you do this stuff. But somebody very shortly will be given the opportunity to win that. So thanks to you for that. And
no problem.
Obviously, you can't really talk about what future but stuff you've got coming out. But I mean, there may be a few things that people aren't aware of, like the BBC version of the SD2 IEC and so on.
Yeah.
Because that's not really a market that I don't know if they're aware. The people on Stardot know, or if they've already got these interfaces. I'm not sure they're aware.
They're quite a common interface, but I don't think many of them are aware of where mine is now. Mine's It's quite a tidy little thing now. Actually, it's just like a nice little harness connector thing, and it's all nice crimps and lovely. You can have these interfaces that live underneath the machine, which is great until you want to take the SD card out and you've got to lift your machine up.
Mine was inside, and that was fine until I started doing ChinnyVision, and people said, "Here's some new games we want you to review." It's like, oh, and then you've got all the fun of games of getting it onto the special. Take it apart, put the special software onto a Windows box because it only works in the Windows box. Put it into the special partition on and so on. And he always runs off
you've
standard.
got one of those ones. Oh my, yeah, you got the CF-based one. That's a right pain in the bum, isn't it?
It's SD card, but it runs on the old SD card. It's got like a 256 meg card or something inside. It's a really funny type of SD card. It works.
To be honest though, a lot of these old interfaces, and this was a problem with blah blah blah. What was it? Actually, the SD2 IEC wasn't so great at early doors. Is the BBC interface? It's really not doing a lot of work. It's literally just a couple of gates. So the interface is running as fast as your SD card. So the last thing it wants to see is a super duper fast SD card. Yeah. So they generally actually run much more reliably with an old MMC card. And in fact, I was using Toshiba SD cards when I was first selling the BBC thing. Then we found out the other SD card that had gone through our approvals wasn't booting up on the BBC Master Compact. And I was like, whoa, that's it. Off the site, gone. Unless it's perfect, I don't sell it. As it turned out, the different speeds of the cards, it was just easier to source an old small card, bundle it with the device free of charge, the end, and then the customer, when they gets it, they don't have to mess around trying to find a card that may or may not work. Just include a basic card that works. So yeah, that's actually one of the few products where the price has gone down quite a lot. It's only 30 quid now. Bargain.
Well, that's all cool, and it's a brilliantly useful product. And there's so much that you sell, the games and everything else you've got. So check out the features. What, futures8bit.com is your URL for the website? Yeah,
there's like a million. But yeah, futures8bit.com or TFW8B gets you there as well. Or Google it. I mean, blimey. Surely people know who I am by now. I've been doing this for far too long.
Well, thanks for your help on ChinnyVision and the stuff you kind of supported the channel with, and indeed lots of retro channels and people online that you support. You're doing a brilliant job there, releasing fantastic products, and great to speak to you today.
Pleasure.
And thanks to everyone who's been listening to this. If you've got a suggestion for someone you'd like me to speak to, or if you'd like to speak to me yourself, just drop me a line below or via ChinnyVision.com. Thanks for listening.